Hello family, welcome to Stories with Storytime. Please subscribe and leave a like for us. It means the world to us. Also share this video to your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you, as you do. Lena was a 20-year-old girl with quiet eyes and a kind heart. She lived in a large home in Baton Rouge with her father Thomas, her stepmother Clarice, and her younger sister Emily. Lena's mother had passed away when she was born, leaving her to grow up without a mother's love. Her father Thomas never showed her any affection. It was as if Lena was invisible to him. Thomas had never loved Lena's mother. Their marriage had been arranged by his own father, forcing him into a union he never wanted. When Lena's mother passed away, Thomas felt nothing but indifference to him. Lena was a constant reminder of a marriage. He was forced into a life he never chose. His heart was cold towards his eldest daughter, and his eyes only sparkled when he looked at Emily, his precious daughter with Clarice, his childhood sweetheart. Emily was only 2 years younger than Lena, but Thomas treated her like a princess. He gave her everything she wanted. "Daddy, can I have the new dress from the store?" Emily would ask, her voice sweet as honey. "Of course, my darling," Thomas would reply, smiling, "anything for my princess." Whenever Emily asked for something, Thomas would rush to fulfill her wishes. New dresses, fancy shoes, or a day out with her friends, Emily always got what she wanted. But when Lena asked for anything, even just a kind word, Thomas acted like he didn't hear her. He never looked at Lena or called her his princess. Clarice, Lena's stepmother, was even crueler. She hated Lena because she blamed Lena's mother for taking away the man she loved. In her eyes, Lena was just a living reminder of the woman who had once stood in her way. "You are just like your mother," Clarice would hiss at Lena. Lazy and good for nothing, she made Lena do all the house chores, even though they had plenty of help. Lena would scrub the floors until her hands were sore, wash the dishes until her back ached, and sweep the yard under the hot sun. But Clarice wasn't done with her cruelty. She would forbid the helpers from giving Lena any food. "She can eat after her work is done," Clarice would say with a cold smile, "if there's anything left." Sometimes Lena went days without food, her stomach growling with hunger. She would quietly drink water, hoping it would stop the pain and continue with her chores. One day, Lena saw Emily leaving for another outing with her friends. Emily wore a bright pink dress, her hair done beautifully and neatly. She laughed and chattered as she got into the car, waving at Thomas. He waved back, a proud smile on his face. Lena watched them from the window, feeling a heavy weight in her chest. "Why do they hate me?" Lena whispered to herself. She wished for a hug from her father, a kind word from Clarice, or even a friendly smile from Emily, but every time Lena tried to speak to them, they turned their backs on her. It was as if she was a shadow in the house, unnoticed and unloved. When Emily returned from her outings, she would often bring back bags full of new clothes and shoes. She would show them off, twirling in her new dresses and laughing. "Look at my new shoes, Lena," Emily would say, her voice mocking. "Daddy says they are the best in the city. You could never have shoes like these." Lena would smile weakly and go back to her chores. Her heart aching, Emily loved to make trouble for Lena. If something went missing or broke, Emily would point at Lena. It was her. Lena did it. She would shout, her eyes glinting with mischief. Clarice would turn to Lena with anger. "You ungrateful girl," she would scream. "After all we do for you, this is how you repay us?" Thomas would say nothing, his face stony as Clarice yelled at Lena. Even if Lena tried to explain, nobody listened. She learned to keep quiet and take the blame. It was easier that way. But sometimes, when she lay awake at night, she imagined getting back at those who wronged her. She never acted on those thoughts, but the resentment brewed quietly inside her, giving her a strength she didn't yet understand. Each day was the same for Lena, filled with endless chores and harsh words. She longed for a different life, one where she was loved and cared for, but that life seemed like a faraway dream, something she could never reach. The only thing Lena had was hope, a small light inside her heart that refused to go out. She hoped that one day someone would see her, truly see her, and love her for who she was. As the days went by, Lena's heart grew heavier, weighed down by loneliness, but she didn't let her tears fall. She kept them locked away deep inside as she swept the floors and scrubbed the dishes, wishing for a love that seemed so far away. One sunny afternoon, Thomas sat in the office looking worried. His business was in big trouble. The company was losing money fast, and he didn't know how to save it. Desperate for help, Thomas went to see Mr. Hawkins, the richest man in town, for help. Mr. Hawkins listened to Thomas's worries with a thoughtful look on his face. After a long pause, he finally spoke. "I can help you, Thomas," he said, his voice smooth and calm. "But there is one condition." Thomas's heart raced with hope. "What is it, Mr. Hawkins?" "I'll do anything," he promised eagerly. Mr. Hawkins leaned forward. "I want one of your daughters to marry my son, Darren." Thomas was taken aback. He knew about Darren. Rumor had it that he was involved in an accident, leaving him disabled. The proposal surprised him, but the promise of saving his business overshadowed any concerns. "I agree," Thomas said quickly, not even bothering to ask for his daughter's opinion. He assumed it didn't matter as long as the deal was sealed. Back home, Thomas decided it would be Lena who would marry Darren. She was the less favored daughter, and he didn't mind if she was unhappy. All he cared about was saving his business. Thomas called Lena into his study. She entered, her eyes filled with fear because she could sense something bad was about to happen. Thomas looked at her with a hard expression. "You will marry Darren," he announced firmly. "Mr. Hawkins will save our business, but only if you marry his son." Lena's eyes widened in shock. "Father, please, I don't know Darren. How can I marry someone I've never even met?" she pleaded, her voice trembling. Thomas's face grew stern. "You don't have a choice," he snapped. "If you refuse, you will be thrown out of this house. You will have no one to care for you." Lena felt like the ground was falling away beneath her. Clarice and Emily, who had been eavesdropping, stepped into the room with smirks on their faces. "Listen to your father," Clarice said with a wicked smile. "You should be grateful. He's even giving you a chance to help the family. You've been nothing but a burden." Emily giggled, enjoying Lena's distress. "Yeah, you should feel lucky that anyone wants to marry you. You don't deserve anything better," she taunted. Lena's eyes filled with tears. "I can't do it," she whispered. "I can't marry someone just to save your business. I want to marry for love." But deep down, a part of her was tired of begging for affection and dignity. If this marriage gave her a way out, if it offered even a sliver of freedom, maybe she could learn to live with it. Thomas's face turned dark with anger. "Enough," he roared. "You will marry Darren, or you will leave this family and never come back. I will not have an ungrateful daughter ruin everything." Lena cried out in despair, but her cries were ignored. Thomas turned to the staff and barked, "Take her to her room. Lock her in. She won't leave until the wedding day." Two helpers grabbed Lena by the arms and dragged her upstairs. They shoved her into her room and locked the door behind her. Lena pounded on the door, screaming for someone to help her, but no one came. She sank to the floor, sobbing. Inside her room, Lena felt like a prisoner. She had no way to escape and no one to help her. She looked out the window, wishing she could fly away far from the cruelty of her family. But there was no escape. The walls of her room felt like they were closing in, trapping her in a life she didn't want. Meanwhile, Clarice was dancing in the shadows of the hallway, a smile on her face. "Finally, I'll be rid of Lena," she whispered to herself. "I've been waiting for this moment for so long. Soon she will be gone, and I won't have to see her sad face anymore. My Emily will have everything, just like she deserves." Lena cried herself to sleep that night, knowing that her fate was sealed. She had no choice but to marry Darren or face a life on the streets. Her father's words echoed in her mind, filling her heart with fear and sadness. She knew that whatever happened next, her life would never be the same again. The day of the wedding came quickly, and Lena felt like she was stuck in a bad dream. She wore a beautiful white gown, but there was no smile on her face. Her heart was heavy with sadness and fear. As she walked down the aisle, she finally saw Darren. He was a handsome man with deep, serious eyes, but he sat in a wheelchair. His face looked distant and sad, and Lena could feel the coldness between them even before they exchanged vows. After the ceremony, Lena moved into Darren's house. It was big and beautiful, but it felt cold and empty. Darren's room was on the ground floor, filled with books and a piano. He never played anymore. Darren used to be full of life and joy. He was smart and had studied in the best schools abroad. He had big dreams, and everyone admired him, but everything changed when the accident happened. A careless driver had hit Darren one day on his way home, leaving him unable to walk. The accident not only shattered his body, but also his spirit. Darren's fiancée, who had stood by his side for many years, left him soon after the accident. She couldn't bear the thought of a future filled with doctor visits and uncertainty. Her departure broke Darren's heart. From that moment, he became cold and temperamental, shutting out the world and isolating himself from everyone, even his own father. The love that once filled Darren's heart turned into bitterness and distrust. Mr. Hawkins had tried everything to help his son. He consulted many doctors, some from the best hospitals in the world, but none of the doctors could promise that Darren would walk again. Each time, the news was the same. There was no hope. Slowly, Darren began to lose all hope too. He stopped going for treatments, saying they were a waste of time. Seeing his once lively son now isolated and miserable pained Mr. Hawkins deeply. He feared that Darren would end up completely alone, and he couldn't bear the thought. Hawkins wanted to find a partner for Darren, someone who could bring light back into his life. But no one from their social status was willing to marry their daughter to a man who would spend his life in a wheelchair. Desperate, Mr. Hawkins began to lose hope of ever finding someone who could help his son. That was when Thomas came to Mr. Hawkins with a business proposal. Seeing an opportunity, Mr. Hawkins set a condition for the deal. Thomas had to agree for his daughter to marry Darren. Mr. Hawkins believed that Lena, being young and kind, could bring comfort and company to his son. He hoped this arrangement would help Darren find some happiness again, even if it was just a little. Mr. Hawkins told Darren, "Your mother wouldn't want to see you so sad and alone. She would want you to be happy, even if it's with a stranger." Darren missed his mother dearly, and so he agreed to the marriage, but only to ease his father's worries. After moving in, Lena tried to be kind to Darren. She brought him his meals and helped him with his medicine, but Darren didn't care. He believed that Lena was only there for his father's money. "You don't need to pretend that you care about me," Darren said one day, his voice cold. "You just want the riches my father can give you." Lena was hurt by his words. "That's not true, Darren," she said softly. "I don't care about money. I want us to try and be friends." But Darren just turned his head away, refusing to listen. Life in Darren's house was hard for Lena. The staff followed Darren's lead. They treated Lena with little respect, whispering behind her back and calling her names. "She's only here for the money," they would say, laughing. "Just look at her, pretending to care." Lena heard these things, and it made her heart ache. She felt lonely and trapped, just like in her father's house. Every day, Lena would try her best to make Darren smile. She would tell him stories and even cook his favorite meals, but nothing worked. Darren's heart was locked away, and he wouldn't let anyone in. He spent most of his time alone, staring out the window or reading his books. Lena would sit beside him, hoping he would talk to her, but he stayed silent. Sometimes, when he turned away, she would feel a flicker of anger, wondering if his pain had made him cruel, if he even wanted to get better, but she never said it aloud. She swallowed the judgment and reminded herself to be patient. One day, as Lena tried to start a conversation, Darren snapped. "Why are you still here?" he shouted. "Can't you see I don't want you around? I didn't ask for this marriage, and I don't want it. Go back to your room and leave me alone." Lena's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't say anything. She quietly got up and went to her room, feeling more alone than ever. She wished she had a mother and someone she could talk to. Her new home was supposed to be a place of safety, but it felt just like the house she had left. As the days passed, Lena realized that she couldn't leave. She had nowhere to go. Her father had made it clear she wasn't welcome back, so she stayed, hoping that one day Darren's heart would soften. She wished that one day they could talk, and maybe, just maybe, he would see her as more than just a stranger. She held on to this small hope, even as the coldness of their marriage threatened to freeze her heart completely. One evening, as Darren wheeled past Lena's room, he heard soft sobs. He paused and gently knocked on the door. "Lena?" Lena quickly wiped her tears and replied, "It's nothing, Darren. Just thinking." Darren didn't push her for answers, but from that moment, he began to watch her more closely. He noticed how the staff whispered behind her back and ignored her. He saw how hard Lena tried to bring a smile to his face, even when he ignored her. The next morning, Darren called for all the staff to gather in the living room. His voice was stern as he spoke. "I've noticed how some of you treat Lena," he said. "She is my wife, and she deserves your respect. Anyone who disrespects her will no longer work here." The room fell silent. The staff exchanged nervous glances. They had never seen Darren so serious. That very day, Darren fired 2 of the worst offenders. The rest of the staff started showing Lena the respect she deserved. They began calling her Madam Lena and treated her with kindness. Lena was surprised by the sudden change. She noticed how the staff now smiled at her and greeted her warmly. She felt a wave of relief and happiness. Later that day, Darren approached Lena. "I'm sorry," he said. "I've been unfair to you. I see now that you're not here for money. You're a good person." Lena felt her heart soften. "Thank you, Darren," she replied. "I only wanted us to be friends." Darren nodded. "Maybe we can be more than friends," he said quietly. As days turned into weeks, Darren and Lena spent more time together. They would sit in the garden, talking about their dreams and fears. Lena told Darren about her life in her father's house and how she had always felt unwanted. Darren shared stories about his accident, his lost hopes, and his sadness. For the first time in a long while, they both felt understood. They were no longer alone. As they spent more time together, Darren and Lena grew closer. They fell in love, their hearts healing from the pain of their pasts. Darren's father, Mr. Hawkins, was happy to see the young couple grow closer with each passing day. One afternoon, Mr. Hawkins came rushing into the house with a letter in his hand. "Lena, I have great news," he exclaimed. "I've received a message from a renowned surgeon abroad. He believes he can help you walk again, Darren. He says the surgery has a high success rate." Darren's eyes widened. He had given up hope a long time ago, but now a small flicker of hope began to grow inside him. Lena squeezed his hand. "You should do it, Darren," she said softly. "It could change everything." Darren agreed to go through with the surgery. They flew abroad, and the days leading up to the surgery were filled with both hope and fear. On the day of the operation, Lena held Darren's hand. "Everything will be all right," she whispered. Darren nodded, taking comfort in her words. Hours passed, and finally, the surgeon came out with a smile. "The surgery was successful," he announced. "With time and therapy, Darren will walk again." Mr. Hawkins hugged his son tightly. Tears of joy ran down his cheeks. Lena's heart felt light, and she couldn't stop smiling. She was so happy for Darren. The weeks that followed were filled with hard work. Darren went through therapy every day, and slowly he began to stand. Then he took his first steps. Lena was always by his side, encouraging him. As Darren grew stronger, his love for Lena deepened. He showered her with the care and attention she had never received before. He would bring her flowers, cook her favorite meals, and always listen to her. Lena felt like she had found the love she had always wished for. Darren decided to take charge of his life again. He told his father he was ready to help with the family business. Mr. Hawkins was overjoyed and thanked Lena. "You've brought happiness back into my son's life," he said warmly. Lena smiled, knowing that she too had found joy. Darren and Lena stood together, looking at the sunset. They knew that the future held many challenges, but as long as they had each other, they could face anything. Their hearts were filled with hope, and they were ready to start a new chapter in their lives. Meanwhile, back at Thomas's house, the family continued life as usual. After solving the company's crisis, Thomas continued supporting Emily and Clarice's luxurious lifestyle. Life was good, and they were all happy. None of them thought about Lena. It had been 2 years since she left. They didn't bother to even find out where she was living with her husband. They were too busy living their luxurious lives to wonder if she was okay. Lena was now married to Darren, the son of the richest man in town. To Thomas, Lena was out of sight and out of mind. He didn't care that she got married to a total stranger. His business was doing well, and he felt he didn't need her anymore. But one day, things started to change. Thomas's business began to fall apart. His company lost a major contract, affecting his business. Sales were dropping, customers were complaining, his workers were unhappy, and his money was slowly disappearing. Thomas tried everything to fix the problem, but nothing worked. He felt trapped and desperate. "Clarice, we need help," Thomas said one evening, looking worried. "The company is in trouble, and I don't know what to do." Clarice frowned. "What do you mean?" "I thought we were rich," she snapped, clearly annoyed. "How could you let this happen? You promised Emily a new car for her birthday, and now you're telling me we're losing money." "What about the lifestyle we've built?" Thomas sighed. "I know. That's why I need to find a way to save the business." Suddenly he remembered Lena. She is married to Darren now, and Darren's father, Mr. Hawkins, was very wealthy. Thomas thought if he could talk to Mr. Hawkins, maybe he could get some help. The next morning, Thomas put on his best suit and drove to Mr. Hawkins's mansion. The gates were tall, and the garden was filled with flowers. Thomas felt nervous as he knocked on the big front door. A staff member opened the door and led him to a waiting room. Thomas sat down, his heart pounding. He hoped Mr. Hawkins would understand and help him. After a few minutes, the staff member returned, shaking her head. "I'm sorry, Mr. Hawkins is busy and cannot see you," she said politely. Thomas's face fell. "But it's important," Thomas pleaded. "Please tell him I'm Lena's father." The staff member nodded. "Mr. Hawkins knows who you are. He does not want to see you. Please leave now." As Thomas left the mansion, Mr. Hawkins watched him from his office window. He thought about the story his son Darren had told him. Mr. Hawkins had wanted a good wife for Darren, someone who would care for him and make him happy. But he never imagined anyone would treat their own daughter the way Thomas and his family treated Lena. The cruelty Lena had suffered shocked him. Mr. Hawkins felt sorry for his daughter-in-law, who had been abandoned and mistreated by her own family. He had no sympathy for Thomas, who had come begging for help. This was the time for Thomas to learn a lesson. Later that evening, Mr. Hawkins told Darren about Thomas's visit. Darren listened quietly, his face set in a serious expression. "I won't tell Lena about this," Darren said firmly. "She's 8 months pregnant. The last thing she needs is more stress. I want to protect her from any more pain." Darren's heart was heavy as he thought about his wife. Lena was the kindest person he had ever known, and she deserved only happiness. He decided to shield her from the truth, not wanting anything to upset the peaceful life they were building together. Thomas, meanwhile, drove home, his heart sinking. He couldn't believe Mr. Hawkins had refused to see him. He felt lost and had no idea how to find Lena. He didn't know where she lived or even her phone number. Lena didn't have a phone when she left. For the first time, Thomas realized how much he had neglected his first daughter. When Thomas got home, he told Clarice and Emily what had happened. "Mr. Hawkins refused to help us," Thomas said, his voice heavy with disappointment. Clarice's eyes widened in surprise. "What do you mean he refused?" she asked, anger rising in her voice. "Lena is his daughter-in-law. Why wouldn't he help her family?" "He doesn't care about us," Emily said, crossing her arms, "and neither does Lena. She's so ungrateful. After everything we did for her, this is how she repays us." Clarice nodded. "Yes, ungrateful girl. She got married and forgot about us. We should have known she was useless." Just then, the phone rang. Thomas answered it, his hands shaking. It was his business partner, and the news was bad. "Thomas, the company's major shareholder, has pulled out his shares. Our company is falling apart. There's nothing we can do," the voice on the other end said. Thomas's face turned pale. He hung up the phone and sank into a chair. "This is all Lena's fault," Thomas shouted, angry and scared. "If she had helped us, this wouldn't have happened." Thomas rushed to his office, hoping to fix the problem, but when he got there, it was too late. His workers were packing up. The office was empty, and there was nothing left to save. Defeated, Thomas drove back home, his mind racing with worry. As he opened the front door, the house was quiet. "Clarice? Emily?" Thomas called out. There was no answer. Thomas walked into the living room and saw a note on the table. His hands trembled as he read it. The note was from Clarice. It said she was leaving with Emily. She couldn't live in poverty, and she had taken all their savings from the joint account. They were gone. Thomas dropped the note, his hands shaking. His family, his business, his money, everything was gone. He had nothing left. Tears filled his eyes as he sat down, feeling alone and betrayed. He thought of Lena, the daughter he had pushed away. Thomas realized too late the pain he had caused. Karma had come knocking, and now he was the one suffering. Days went by, and things got even worse. Thomas watched as his assets collapsed overnight. His houses, his cars, everything he owned was taken away to pay his debts. He lost everything. The stress was too much for him to bear. One morning, Thomas felt dizzy and collapsed. His vision blurred, and he fainted, falling to the ground. When he woke up, he was in a hospital bed. His head was pounding. The doctors told him his blood pressure had spiked. Thomas lay there, feeling weak and defeated. He thought of Lena, the daughter he had cast aside. He wished he could turn back time and make different choices. Now all he had was a broken heart and an empty life. He had no family, no money, and no future. All he had were his regrets. Lena sat in the nursery, rocking her baby girl to sleep. Little Abigail was 3 months old, with a sweet smile and big, curious eyes. Lena loved to watch Abigail sleep, feeling the warmth of her tiny body against her chest. Darren, her husband, stood by the door smiling at them. His heart was full as he watched his wife and daughter. Life was perfect, full of love and happiness. One evening after dinner, Darren sat Lena down in the living room. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, his voice serious. Lena looked at him, her heart pounding. "What is it?" she asked. Darren took a deep breath. "It's about your father, Thomas. He's in trouble. His company is gone, and he's lost everything. He's in the hospital now. I didn't want to tell you while you were pregnant because I didn't want to stress you." Lena felt a mix of emotions, sadness, anger, and pity. She had once craved her father's love and had wished he would show her even a little kindness. But now she had a husband who adored her and a daughter who filled her heart with joy. She felt safe and loved for the first time in her life. And yet lately, there were moments when she questioned if she deserved it all. Sometimes, when Abigail cried late into the night, Lena would sit silently wondering if she was strong enough for motherhood, if she could hold this peaceful life together. "I don't know what to say," Lena whispered, her eyes filling with tears. Darren took her hand. "I just wanted you to know. You don't have to do anything if you don't want to, but if you feel like visiting him, I will support you." Lena thought about it for a few days. She remembered how Thomas and Clarice had treated her. The harsh words, the cold stares. But she also remembered the time she had begged for her father's attention, the time she had tried so hard to make him proud. She decided she needed closure. She wanted to see her father one last time and then leave the past behind. The next morning, Lena asked Darren to take her to the hospital. They drove in silence, both lost in their thoughts. When they arrived, Darren waited outside while Lena went in. She felt nervous, her hands shaking as she walked down the white hospital corridor. She stopped at the door, took a deep breath, and entered. Thomas was lying in the hospital bed, looking pale and weak. His face was thin and his eyes were filled with sorrow. When he saw Lena, he sat up, surprised. "Lena," he whispered, his voice shaking. "Is it really you?" "Yes, Papa. It's me, Lena," she said softly. Thomas's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, Lena. I know I was a terrible father. I treated you badly, and I regret it every day. Please, can you forgive me?" he begged, his voice breaking. Lena looked at him, the man who had caused her so much pain. She thought about her life now, about Darren and Abigail, about the love she felt every month. Lena said, her voice calm, "I found the love I was looking for. I don't want to hold on to the past anymore." Thomas cried, his tears falling freely. "Thank you, Lena. Thank you," he said over and over. Lena felt a sense of peace wash over her. She paid Thomas's hospital bills before leaving. She felt lighter, like a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. And though she said nothing aloud, a small part of her wanted him to see what he had lost. The daughter he had cast aside was no longer weak, but thriving. As for Thomas, he spent his days in a small apartment filled with regret. He knew he had lost the chance to be a father to Lena, and now it was too late. He thought of Clarice and Emily, who had left him when he lost his money. He was alone, filled with regret for the choices he had made. As for Clarice and Emily, they had moved to a faraway city, hoping to start fresh. But instead of being frugal with their spending, they continued spending lavishly, and soon they ran out of money. They did not know how to do anything, but in order to survive, they had to look for work. Clarice had to clean houses, and Emily washed dishes in a small restaurant. They struggled to pay their rent, living in a tiny apartment. Life was hard, nothing like the luxurious life they once had. One evening, Clarice and Emily sat on the worn-out couch in their small apartment, flipping through channels on their old TV. Suddenly, they saw a familiar face. It was Lena, sitting next to Darren, smiling brightly. They were on a talk show, speaking about a new charity project they were starting to help children in need. Lena looked happy, full of life. Clarice and Emily watched in shock, realizing the girl they had looked down on was now living a happy and fulfilled life. Shame and regret filled their hearts. They had chased after wealth and luxury, only to lose everything. Lena had found love and happiness, and that was worth more than all the riches in the world. Emily and Clarice spent their days filled with hardship and regrets. Lena, Darren, and little Abigail lived happily ever after, surrounded by love and laughter. The pain of the past was replaced by the joy of a bright future. Lena had learned that forgiveness could heal even the deepest wounds, and she was ready to embrace the beautiful life that lay ahead. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, kindly like this video and subscribe to this channel for more amazing videos.